Welcome to Caregiver SOS On Air, presented by the WellMed Charitable Foundation, with nationally known gerontologist Carol Zernail and award-winning veteran broadcaster Ron Aaron. This program provides health, wellness, and other information for caregivers who are vital to the health and well-being of so many people across our country. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Aaron and Carol Zernail.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. Our program comes to you every week, both on podcast, and we're available wherever you listen to your podcast. We're on the radio as well in a number of cities in Texas and Florida. Carol Zernail is our co-host. She's with us today. She's a nationally recognized gerontologist and is the chair of the RAISE Advisory Council. She also has a master's degree in gerontology. Carol, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Ron.
This is a wonderful topic, and it's one that I know you have lived over and over again, rediscovering yourself and your purpose after caregiving.
Well, it's probably a topic that we don't deal with enough because we're in the throes of caregiving. We give it all of our energy. And then when caregiving is over, or even in those quiet phases, who are we?
And we've lost that real purpose of what we were doing for the last so many years.
Yeah, it can be tough to get re-engaged with ourselves.
Well, let's welcome Dr. Evelyn Johnson-Taylor. Dr. Evelyn Johnson-Taylor is a lifelong caregiver and an advocate for those who support loved ones through illness and aging. She began her caregiving career and her journey in the early 1990s when she left her ICU nursing career in Washington, D.C. to care for her father. Years later, she walked that path again, serving as her late husband's caregiver for some 10 years. Those experiences, combined with her background as a registered nurse, shaped her deep compassion for caregivers and fueled her mission to provide them with hope, resources, and encouragement. Evelyn holds an associate degree in nursing, a BA in women's studies, and both a master's and Ph.D. in ministry. She's the award-winning author of See Me, Hear Me, Know Me, From the Heart of a Caregiver, and In and Out of Season, Thriving in Life's Transitions. And that's a wonderful couple of titles for a couple of books. We'll tell you more about it. But meanwhile, let's welcome Evelyn Johnson-Pryor. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Talk to us a little bit about your caregiving journey, beginning with your help for your dad and then your husband.
Well, I moved to North Carolina when my dad was diagnosed with cancer. I was already a nurse, so it seemed like the perfect person to do it. We had a large family, and all my siblings thought, you're the one to do it. So I did. And it didn't last that long. It was only about 2.5 months, and he transitioned. And so I was so surprised when life handed me that same chore again some years later for my husband, who was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 48. And he went through a 10-year journey of that. And when he was first diagnosed, we were very optimistic, thought it would be short term. The doctors had given him a good prognosis. And after 3 months of therapy, we found out that the cancer had become more aggressive. And so there were some other things that needed to be done for him, which inevitably he had a stem cell transplant done. And a year later developed an autoimmune disease that left him disabled. So that was kind of our journey for the last 10 years of his life. And the thing about caregiving, especially when you do it for a long time, it can be all consuming. It takes all of your energy, your emotional bandwidth, everything that you have goes toward that purpose.
I love I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carol.
No, I was going to say, it's so true. Did you discover that in the moment, or was it later?
I discovered it in the moment. And I think for me, having been a nurse was very helpful for me to be able to process what was going on. But I have to be honest, I was not prepared for what happened after it was over.
What does that mean?
Well, I didn't know who I was. I had been a caregiver for 10 years for him. And although I was a mother, I was a wife, at the time I was a ministry leader, I wrote books, I spoke. all those things I did, but what I did with most of my time was caregiving. So that's what I became known as, the caregiver. He would introduce me as his caregiver. People would say to me, "Oh, you're such a great caregiver." So that was the role that I took on. So when he transitioned, I woke up that next morning thinking, what am I supposed to do now? For 10 years, I knew pretty much what my days were like, doctor's appointments, medications, doing what he needed me to do. And then when that was over, I didn't know who I was or what I would do. Felt lost.
Hold that thought. We're going to come right back to you. I want to let folks know who may have just joined us. You're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air, our podcast available wherever you get your podcast, and we're on the radio in several markets in Texas and Florida as well. Carol Zernail, our co-host, is with us, and we're talking with Dr. Evelyn Johnson-Taylor. And Dr. Taylor has a Ph.D. in ministry. She also is a registered nurse, and talking about her experiences as a caregiver, first for her dad and then her husband, and then trying to figure out who she was. And it's interesting because one of the things we often hear, Dr. Johnson-Taylor, from people who are caregiving for a husband or a spouse, is they no longer are identified as that spouse. You became a caregiver. You weren't his wife anymore.
Well, and it's funny you should say that because it was important to me that I distinguish those roles, because often my husband would become frustrated by his condition and he sometimes would vent his frustrations. And I had to be clear that he was not upset with me as his wife, but he was upset with what was happening to him. So I had to step into that caregiver position to understand that, because as a wife, it would be hurtful. But as a caregiver, I understood.
So that ability to compartmentalize who you are, does it make you slightly schizophrenic?
It was a survivor technique, really. It was a survivor technique. And it took me I probably was about 6 or 7 years into the journey before I was able to learn how to do that. So I did have a lot of sad days until I was able to do that. And that helped me survive.
Well, I think that's an important distinction. You don't just start out knowing everything about caregiving, knowing how it's going to impact you emotionally.
Yeah.
I love the title of one of your books, See Me, Hear Me, Know Me, From the Heart of a Caregiver. I'm assuming you're describing exactly how you felt.
Yes. And my husband also contributed to that book. And it was important to him because he was so appreciative of what I did for him. And we, in the latter years of his life, we would go speak to caregiver support groups and share our story. And of course, I would be the invited speaker, but everybody would flock to him afterwards because they wanted to hear his story. But he contributed to that book. And we just kind of shared our journey, what we learned in the process that helped us to be able to navigate those years in hopes that it would benefit other caregivers.
Share with us what you learned.
So much. One thing I did, I can look back now, obviously, and see that I learned more than I thought I was learning. But one of the things that I was learning is when you talked about that wife, being the wife and the caregiver. And when you stand and you say those vows for better, for worse, for sickness and in health, you don't think, you may think a virus, a cold, or something like that, but you don't think 10 years, or at least I didn't think 10 years ahead that would be part of my story. So it just taught me really what it really means when you make vows to each other and what love can look like in different seasons of your life. You go into a marriage thinking love is going to be, having fun, doing things together, lovey-dovey, romantic all the time. And then when you're hit with something like we were hit with for 10 years, then if that had been our only definition of love, then that would have been pretty sad. But we had to learn that love shows up in different ways. And I truly believe that anybody who steps into the role of a caregiver, first of all, you don't do it because you're excited about it, but usually it's something that you have to do. And I think that is one of the deepest forms of love that you can show to someone when you step into that role and be willing to sacrifice and put your life on hold to take care of someone else.
I can remember after I had knee replacement surgery and my wife Gina was providing care for me. And at one point, she looked at me and she said, I don't remember the in sickness and in health part of our vows. Did we actually say that?
I hope you were nice to her.
I was nicer to her than she was to me.
Oh,
She believed, she
Thank you,
believed
Ron.
as a caregiver that she shouldn't coddle me. I remember one time I said, well, would you mind bringing me a bottle of water? And she said, you know what? You got a walker there. Get up and get it. And the idea
well,
was,
I don't disagree with that because
that's what I figured.
I do believe that part of what kept my husband on the earth for as long as it did was that I didn't cuddle him. I gave him permission to do what he could and encouraged him to do what he could. So I think I was an asset to him, obviously in caring for him, but also in terms of his longevity and his illness, I was an asset.
Now, do you share that with other caregivers when you have a chance to talk with them?
I don't know if I've shared that with them before, but when you brought that up, I thought that's a good point. I'll definitely have to share that. Because for my husband too, he was 48 years old when he was diagnosed. And a large part of his struggle was just the emotional coming to grips with the fact that he needed help at that age. And that was hard for him. So it was important that I allowed him to be as independent as he could be and encourage him to be so that he would feel better about himself emotionally and about what he had to offer.
Well, and both of you make a really great point, and one of the things we do in the aging space too often is taking care of people as opposed to empowering people and helping them to maintain their independence, their skills for as long as possible. And we do it out of love.
Yes.
We do it because we care, and unintentionally we take away from that person by doing too much. So Ron, Gina, is the hero of the story.
Yes.
Well, we're going to take a little pause here as we recall what a hero she was in making me get up and walk. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail is our co-host, and we're talking with Dr. Evelyn Johnson-Taylor about rediscovering yourself and your purpose after caregiving. You're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Caregiver SOS on air. We're delighted to have you with us. We come to you every week with a discussion of an issue, a problem, some accomplishments involved in caregiving with more than 60 million caregivers across this country, but most thinking they are the Lone Rangers. We try to bring you the latest information and help that can make that job easier and more manageable. Caregiver SOS on air takes a look at trends across this country. We provide tips on how to be a better caregiver and, most importantly, where you can go for help. On Caregiver SOS on air, we try to give you what you need to make that caregiving manageable and to provide you with the help that can make your life easier. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail and I are delighted to co-host this program, and we're thrilled you've joined us on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air podcast, available everywhere, brought to you by WellMed Charitable Foundation.
Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again. Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again.
We're so pleased you are sticking with us right here on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. Our podcast available wherever you get your podcast. We also on the radio in a number of cities in Texas and Florida as well, but around the world, you can listen to Caregiver SOS on air via our podcast. We're talking with Dr. Evelyn Johnson-Taylor. Dr. Taylor is a registered nurse, has advanced degrees in ministry. Carol Zernail is our co-host, and she's with us as well. And we're talking about life after caregiving. And I had shared with you before we went on the air, Dr. Taylor, that after my dad passed, my mom had been caring for him for a number of years, as you were for your husband. And after he died, not only did she kind of lose direction, lose purpose, but all the folks who had been friends had disappeared. And so she was on an island all by herself and really wasn't able to overcome that.
That's sad. it grieves me to hear that, but that happens a lot. And sometimes you really can't go back and get the life that you had. You have to rebuild from where you are. And I think the first step is to give yourself permission to rebuild, because sometimes caregivers, they will feel guilty about rebuilding a life that they want. They'll feel guilt. And then they are not only are they grieving the person that they lost, but they're also grieving the years that they lost, the years that they had to put on hold. So they have to rediscover, think about what were the things that brought me joy before I became a caregiver? What areas was I gifted in? What dreams did I have? What did I want to do? And then try and rediscover your identity and restore some of those things that you liked to do before. And start off small, because sometimes if you try to look at all of it, it just becomes too overwhelming. And for me, I had to be intentional about doing things that I enjoyed doing, because it was so much easier just to sit there and think about what I had lost. But I had to be intentional, put forth the effort. So I would say to anybody who's at that space now where the caregiving journey has ended, to be intentional. Think about what it is that I loved doing before. What kinds of things brought me joy before? What kinds of things was I connected with that I had to put on hold that I can go back and revisit now?
Well, does it also give you an opportunity to do things differently?
Mm-hmm.
To say, before I was this, and now I think I'm really here. I'm in a different place.
True.
What did you do?
Well, I love to travel, and that was obviously something that my husband and I had talked about doing together once our children went off to college. And then, of course, by the time they went off to college, he had already been sick for a few years. So we never got to do that. But as a widow, that is something that I was intentional about doing. And even though it obviously was not the same and it was hard to make that decision, but I thought, well, you're still here, so why not? And so that is one of the things that I enjoy doing. And just being intentional, even the small things, maybe a hobby or something that you always wanted to do, or maybe take a class or something that you've always wanted to do. And although it may look different without your spouse or the people that you were caring for, just think about how they would want you to enjoy life. They wouldn't want you to be sad. So do it for them, if not for yourself.
And did you start dating?
I have not started dating. I'm open to dating, but it just hasn't something that has happened for me yet. I'm quite busy, and I know sometimes that can be a issue if you have a busy life, and my life is quite busy.
Well, I'm curious, do other people or family members share their thoughts of what they think you should be doing post caregiving?
All the time. All the time. I have one relative who tells me almost weekly, you should get married. You should get married again. And I'm like, it's really not that's just not the way it happens. You don't just say, I want to get married and it happens. But yeah, people always want to tell you what to do and how to do it. And sometimes that's good, because you do need a push. You need someone to support you and to encourage you in those moments where you maybe don't feel like you can do something new or different. And you might need somebody to say, oh, yeah, you can do that, or let me do it with you, or let me help you. So that can be good too. But also, you have to be aware of what it is that you really want out of life, and not let other people impose what they want for you.
How about your children? How did they respond?
When my husband passed away,
Yes.
my children, they are different. They have different personalities. One is very sociable. The other one is more of an introvert. So they responded differently. And the challenge for me was to try and navigate what was happening with me while keeping an eye on them. So I went to therapy, they went to therapy, because that is something that I found helpful for me, and I encouraged them to do that as well. And to my knowledge, they did do that. They were all both out of the home when my husband passed away. They're adults, but I do believe that they did take that road as well. And it was very helpful to us. And people grieve differently. They are young, they have their own lives, they have their careers, And then mom was home in the house that we lived in alone. So it was different for me, different for them, but they're all doing well now. So thank you for asking.
Now, they knew you as both a nurse and as a caregiver. Did either one go into a healthcare profession?
No, and I wanted them to, but they did not. But I do believe that they are both more compassionate, though, because of what they lived through with their dad. They have a more compassionate heart and a more compassion for people who suffer, people who are disabled. So I think that benefited them in that way, just kind of helped to shape who they are now as young women.
Now, we talked a little bit about See Me, Hear Me, Know Me from the Heart of a Caregiver, and your second book, In and Out of Season, Thriving in Life's Transitions. What is that about?
Now, that's the book that I wrote after my husband passed away because it was definitely a different season for me. And I didn't really know. Not only did I not know how to navigate it, I didn't know if I could. But through much prayer, counseling, the support of family and friends, I was able to maneuver that journey. I'm 8 years, almost 8 years now, widowed, and I feel that I feel like I'm doing really great. I'm happy, fulfilled, doing things that I want to do in life, things that my husband and I had talked about doing. I'm doing some of those things as well. So that book is about navigating life's transitions and hard seasons, not necessarily death of a loved one, but any kind of season that people go through, whether it be divorce, career change, moving to a new city, just those places that we find ourselves in that we didn't plan on being, and how we can navigate through that and become more productive in who we are and show up in the truest sense of who we are and who we were meant to be.
So, what do you think the keys to success, or what are the attributes of a successful post caregiving or a transition in life? What do you think? What would be the first advice that you would give people?
I always say take time first. Take some time to reflect because you don't want to rush through that process because I believe that grief, you have to, it's something you have to experience. So I would say take time to reflect and just understand where you are in that moment and what it means and what that moment is meant to teach you. Because I believe that there are lessons in every part of our life, everything that we endure, every season, every challenge. There's something that we learn in that moment. So just take some time to reflect and then embrace where you are, be okay with, this is where I am at the moment. I'm sad. I'm not feeling good. And that's okay. I don't have to put on a show for anybody else to make them feel good. I'm feeling what I feel and I'm okay with that and embrace that moment and then strategize and a plan, maybe get someone to help you. We talked about counseling, which is excellent, but maybe the support of a friend or someone who can just come along beside you and help you strategize and work out a plan or some goals or something that you want to accomplish. Because when you have goals, then that gives you something to work towards, something to look forward to. And you're not just wishing and hoping, but you actually have a plan of how to achieve what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Had you been a writer before you wrote those books? Were you journaling, or is that something that just came to you?
No, I started writing books in 2006, so I have three other books that I wrote before the Caregiver book. So that was something that I had been doing, and my husband was the one who encouraged me to begin writing those years ago, and that was another part of my journey when he transitioned because he had always been such an intricate part of everything that I did. When we married, we both were in ministry and we were in ministry together. We served together, we lived together, we did life together. And he was such an encourager, even in his sickness. He would push me, do this, go do this, you can do it. So when he left, I thought, I don't have anybody to encourage me now. Am I going to be able to do everything that I used to do before he got sick? Am I going to be able to go back to doing those things without him?
That's beautiful. Your book's available on Amazon and at your local bookstore if you have one. Correct?
Yeah. Yes, they are.
Cool.
Yes.
Got to
Yes,
stop you right
they're
there.
Amazon, any online bookstores and any brick and mortar stores. If they don't have them, they can order them and get them for you.
Evelyn Johnson-Taylor, thank you. We are flat out of time. Really appreciate you being here. Life After Caregiving, Rediscovering Yourself and Your Purpose. For Carol Zernail, I'm Ron Aaron. We'll talk with you soon right here on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air.
The executive producer for Caregiver SOS On Air is Daniel Calderon. The producer is Sharice Pendleton. And the associate producer is Catherine Oglesby. We'll see you next week on Caregiver SOS On Air.
You've been listening to Caregiver SOS On Air, an exclusive presentation of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. We welcome emails with suggestions and comments on this program at radio@wellmed.net. Join co-hosts Carol Zernail and Ron Aaron next week for more on caregiving, improving the health and well-being of caregivers and their care recipients everywhere. For more on caregiving and podcasts of our programs, visit caregiversos.org.